Going to be a little story time about the racism that I experienced in Kansas City in the workplace and why, quite frankly, I don't want to live in Kansas City anymore. This is going to be a long story, so it's probably going to be like, I don't know how many parts, but we're going to have parts to this because I want to tell it thoroughly, and yeah, I don't want to cut any corners. And the purpose of me telling the story is because I want to be free. Like, there's so much trauma. This has really affected my life. This has impacted me mentally, socially, emotionally, and physically. And so, yeah, we're going to just get right into it. Also, I'm going to try to tell the story in the most organized and linear fashion, but can't make any promises. I want to give details and be clear as possible, but it's hard when, you've gone through these types of things to kind of even articulate yourself, so I'm going to do the best that I can. So for a little context for those who aren't from Kansas City, just know that Kansas City is a predominantly white city. And so a lot of times in cities like Kansas City, there is a crab in the barrel mentality. There are a lot of Black people, the small population of Black people who, just are a part of the problem too. Like they help perpetuate the racism. And so I was for a long time a person who did not know that Kansas City was a predominantly white city because I was in a bubble. And so some people watching this, you may not know that Kansas City is a predominantly white city, but all you got to do is do a quick Google search to see the numbers to see, because you're probably just, because there's predominantly Black neighborhoods and stuff in Kansas City, which I grew up in, but when you don't come out of that bubble, you won't see that what the city truly is. And so, yeah, so it's a small pool of Black people, right? And out of that small pool of Black people, there's an even smaller pool of professional Black people. So in my line of work and what I do, the average person that I am competing up against for a job is not another Black person. It's oftentimes a white person. So for the past few years, I've been in the advertising industry. So I've done, a range of things, but we can just kind of categorize it as like comms, communications. So I've done public relations, marketing, account management, SEO even, and even a little bit of social media. I've done a lot of things in my career, but that's for the past 4 years, the space that I've been in. So my first big job was, when I got into this space, was at a global advertising agency that is like the Yale or Harvard of advertising agencies. So obviously, I was super excited to get this role. There were people, congratulating me, telling me that they had been trying to get into this agency for years and they had more experience than me, and were even like, white people. So I think it was just the favor of God that I was able to get in the door. And one of the things that they stand by is that they hire the best talent. So, me getting in the door was just, I think it was just nothing but favor from God. Even though I went through what I went through, I still consider it to be a blessing because I did gain a lot of valuable skill sets there. And then also, I was able to put that experience on my resume. So, even though I went through what I went through, I still am looking at the glass half full with the situation. So boom, I get in the door. I start out in a senior account manager role, and I really wanted to get into public relations. So when the door opened for me to get into a PR role, I took it. And so when I transitioned into this PR role, I noticed almost immediately that my direct report, which was a Caucasian woman, that she didn't like me. And I knew she didn't like me because, one, I can feel it. I'm a very intuitive and I am very discerning. I can discern pretty easily. But the tangibles were there, the evidence was there in the natural, which was, she wasn't very friendly when they did do the welcome, like most companies, when they're onboarding a new employee, they kind of do like a round table of everybody introducing themselves, and then, you kind of telling about yourself. And when we did that, she just wasn't very welcoming. She didn't seem very enthusiastic like the others did on the team, and didn't tell me that she was excited to have me on the team like everybody else did. So that was my first kind of nudge in my spirit that yeah, this woman is going to be a problem. But I still kind of just had an optimistic, perspective, and just kind of bypassed it and just kept moving and just remained professional. So from that moment up until the first big thing, there was a lot of micromanagement. I would have deadlines for projects, and before those deadlines, she would harass me a lot on Teams, asking me when is it going to be done, where am I at in the project. And so it got to a point where I had to just tell her hey, if I have an issue or if I need your help, I'll let you know, because what she was doing was taking me off course. She was throwing me off and distracting me, and when she would do that. And so, it would be times where it was times where I just ignored her. I'll get back to her when I can, because I don't want to break my focus. And the times that I did do that, she was very confrontational. And I remember a time where she was mad that I didn't respond to her in a certain time frame. And I remember this time frame, it was under 30 minutes for sure. And she was like, hey, you need to respond to me quicker. Again, this woman was very rude, very unprofessional, didn't know how to talk to people, or I'll just say me, because I don't know what her experience was with other people. Well, I did know, and it was more pleasant when she talked to them versus me. So, but yeah, so constantly harassing me, micromanaging me. And so the next thing that happened after that, which was, I consider the first big occurrence, was, so I got my wisdom tooth extracted, and I assumed that this time was going to go how I did last time, which last time it was a pretty smooth process and a quick recovery. I think it was no more than 2 or 3 days, I was ready to go back to work. So I assumed that this was going to be the same situation, but it wasn't. And the reason it wasn't was because of the medication that I was prescribed by the doctor. The pain medication had some adverse effects, and I didn't know that initially. So I let my boss know when it was time for me to come back, hey, I'm still not feeling well, but I'm still going to come to work, because I was trying to prove myself. I was still kind of new to the team, and I already seen, her behavior and what type of person she was. And I just didn't want to give her a reason to continue to harass me. So I decided to be a team player and just truck through, the nauseous, being nauseous, being lightheaded. I decided to just still do my job. But I still gave her a heads up that I wasn't feeling well and that I would be taking frequent breaks when I just needed to. So I was telling her that because I knew she was a person who micromanaged me, and if I didn't communicate with her every 5 minutes of the day, that she was going to be making it a big deal. So, and that was me being facetious by saying 5 minutes a day, but she wanted regular check-ins. So yeah, I did my job that day. And the next day I decided to cover myself and go to the doctor and get a doctor's note, because at this point I'm really just kind of very leery of her. How she has spoken to me, and it's just something off about her. So I'm just let me cover myself so that she doesn't have anything on me. So I go get a doctor's note, and I found out when I went to the doctor's that it was the pain meds that was making me feel nauseous like that. And so I sent an email, attached the doctor's note, and I sent it to her, and I sent it to another one of the leaders in our department, and just let them know, hey, I got this doctor's note just so you guys can know, I was really not feeling well and I wasn't myself yesterday, and I was not as productive as I usually am because of this. And so the other leader, who was a male, responded to me. She didn't respond to the email at all, but he responded and was like, no worries, just make sure you do a better job of communicating next time, because she told me that you didn't communicate with her at all yesterday. What? I communicated with her. I told her right at the start of my shift that I was going to, have some downtime today or take frequent breaks because of, how I was feeling. And I communicated with her, and I had the proof of that I did communicate that with her. So this made me furious, because it was just confirmation of what I already was picking up from her. And I saw that she blatantly lied on me, which is a problem, because you're painting a false narrative of me, which is ruining my reputation and could stop me from future opportunities. So I decided to go to HR, because I feel like this was a situation that I didn't need to let bypass, because if I let this slide, it was going to be more. And I needed to have record of this as well. So to my disappointment, HR was not supportive. The HR rep that I was speaking with gaslit me like no other. I learned the hard way that HR is not in your corner as an employee. It is their job to protect the company, and they will do that by any means necessary. And so it is important for you as the employee to protect yourself and document, because they're just going to gaslight you. And so but you need to check that box and do your due diligence so that you can have the record that you did go to HR. You're going to need that. So don't have the expectation that they're going to defend you and that they're going to be in your corner and that they're going to support you. No, just do it to check a box. So HR set up a meeting with her and I, where I confronted her about what she did and how I felt about what she did, and essentially was just letting her know that I was this really was harmful with my trust in her, and that I did not feel secure with her. I felt very unsafe with her. Also, in that meeting, I let her know that she is very critical of my work. So that's another thing I forgot to mention. She was extremely critical of my work. She always criticized everything. Like she just was like picking apart every little thing. Any little small mistake I made, she was highlighted it. And there were some things that may have been a mistake, but then there were some things that I just didn't know, and it was just like a matter of like mentoring me or like providing training, because I didn't have a formal training. So there are going to be things that I don't do, that are to your standard, because you never even told me what your standard is. So I'm just winging it and doing the best that I can with what I know. And so, but I was being like reprimanded for that. And so what that did was create a hostile work environment, because I'm working in anxiety now. Like when I'm doing my work, I'm scared of like making a mistake or doing it wrong. So it's like I can't even really like do my work. It's killing my confidence. And so it was a very hostile work environment, and I just didn't feel confident in my work. And the confidence is important because this was a client-facing role. So when I spoke to clients and presented to clients, if I'm not coming across as like knowledgeable or confident, that's harmful to me and my reputation and even the company. And so when you don't have a leader that supports you and who is abusive, because let's call it what it is. It's abuse. That's what's going to be the aftermath of that. In this conversation, she just denied that she even lied on me, and started crying. Typical, right? Yeah. Started crying and saying that it hurts her feelings, that I don't trust her and that I feel unsafe with her. She never wants anybody that works for her to feel that way, blah, blah, blah. So I accepted her apology. It was a clean slate for me. At that point, I didn't, it was a true clean slate. Like I was like, okay. So I even started like feeling like I can even like talk to her and like trust her again, because she really like, was portraying to be someone who was remorseful. So I was like, okay, like I'm gonna give her a chance, like, and I'm naturally not a person who's very trusting anyway. But I was really trying to give this woman the benefit of a doubt, like truly. Until she gave me another reason to not trust her again, which happened very shortly after this occurrence. So next thing that happened, and this is just my opinion, could be wrong about this, but I feel like I was set up. But I was presented with the opportunity to go on my first like work trip, and I was excited because I haven't been on a work trip before. So this was a work trip to meet our clients, and we went out to California and a few different places, but we went to Anaheim, Baker, California, I think. I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly if it was Bakersfield or Baker, but anyway, those are the two places. And we went to another small like town in California, in Northern California. So went out there, and we were meeting up with our clients. There was an event, like a trade show, that we were helping out with, and like helping run the client's booth. And just typical kind of like hospitality when you are in a client facing role. Although this is my first experience with it, where you dine with your client, you treat them, to dinner and breakfast and lunch, and it's like bonding time or whatever. So on the client side, there were a lot of people over with the client that worked for the company that I was meeting, because it was about a work trip that was about a week long. And so from the advertising agency, we had, like 3 other departments traveled with us. And so there was like 2 people from each department. And I was the only person of color from my company that traveled out there. So out of all of the people that came, I think it was 1 male, and then everyone else was just white women. So it was all white women and 1 guy, and then there was me. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, that was it. But I know for sure I was the only person of color, period. So on this work trip, we were out in the field. I'm trying not to give like too much detail, because then it'll give away like the company, and I'm not trying to be in any type of legal trouble. So, but we were in our field of work, and someone on the client side asked me if he saw me trying to take a selfie, which I was told that we could like get content of our work while we're out there. And so that's what I was doing. I was trying to take a selfie and like show the background of the scenery of the field that I was in. And he offered to take the picture of me because he saw me trying to take it of myself. So I let him take the picture. So that was one thing. And then another time we were at a restaurant where we were with the client, and it was in the summertime, and the AC was like, the vent was like right above us, and it was like Arctic cold in this place. It was freezing, and I had like this little thin dress in there, and I really think I'm anemic, but that's another story. But I was really, really cold. I'm talking about like I was shivering. And so at this restaurant, it was about 4 people from the client side and about 10 people from our agency there. So I just let them know, hey, I'm going to go outside for just a little bit because I am like freezing. I'm shivering. I'm cold. I'm going to go outside, thaw out, and then come back in, because I was just really uncomfortable. Like if you've ever been cold and I'm talking about like shivering, freezing cold, like you probably understand. So, I professionally like tried to dismiss myself, but I was not going to stay out there and be rude, but I was so uncomfortable, like I was freezing. So when I said that, one of the guys on the client side offered to give me his jacket. And so I took his jacket and stayed. That was that. And then the next place that we went to, not the next place, sorry, on a different day, we were going to another restaurant for dinner. And we were in Northern California at this time. So it was like not even like that hot. Like it gets actually like a little bit cold at nighttime. And so I went to this restaurant and I requested. This was a request. This was not a demand. This was not like, hey, a deal breaker. I just was like, hey, are you guys okay with like sitting outdoors? Because inside of the restaurants can be very, very cold. And so everybody was cool with it. Everybody was fine. Everybody was like on board with it. Nobody had any complaints about it. Everybody seemed to be like very like, just easygoing. So giving all this context, because when I came back to work that following week, my manager set up a meeting with me, and she goes, "Oh, so how was the work trip? How'd it go?" And I was like, "Oh, it went amazing. I had such a good time. Oh my God, I met some amazing people. Like, I was just on cloud nine from my work trip." So she goes, "Well, there were some unpleasant reports I got back on you." And I'm like, "Really? Like, what could have possibly been said?" So it was told that I was being a diva. I was being a diva. I was trying to control everything. When I went to the restaurant, I tried to leave the restaurant, and I was being unprofessional because I tried to leave the restaurant because I was cold. So it was like half stories being told, and I was being portrayed as like someone who was just insubordinate, not being a team player, being a diva. And then also I was accused of being unprofessional when I allowed the client to take a photo of me that he asked, to do. And then I was also, accused of being a diva when I asked if we can sit outdoors, and everybody complied and no one had a problem with it, because one of the ladies that worked with our agency, she was obese, and she said that she was uncomfortable sitting outside in that weather, although it was cool because the sun was going down and it was like a breeze. And again, we're in Northern California, so it's not like super, super hot outside. So she said that she was uncomfortable and she was sweating, and she was very upset that I made everybody sit outside. When she never spoke up, when everybody, like, when it was asked to the group, like, "Hey, can we sit outside?" She never like said, "Hey, like, I don't feel comfortable with that," because she didn't have to say why at that moment. She could have just said, "I don't feel comfortable with that," and I would have just easily just been freezing in the restaurant. But yeah, she was obese, and I'm not saying that like as in a joking way. Like, she, by the American standard, she's overweight, and she was in our group, like when we were doing like tours and different things, she would like sit those things out because she didn't want to walk. And so so she and two others in the group were the ones that went back and reported these things to my manager, according to my manager. And so when I was trying to tell my manager, like, defend myself and tell my manager like the truth and what actually happened, she was defending them. She was like, she was saying like, I need to just like take the constructive criticism and like take accountability, is what she was like, implying in what she said. So I guess in that conversation, I was not supposed to defend myself or tell the truth. So so nevertheless, this was a situation that was addressed by, what was his title? I don't know. I believe he was at the executive level, but he pretty much was over our department. And this guy was someone who was a person of color, and he was biracial. So he was half black and half white. So at this time, he seemed to be really in my corner, when he got news of this. And when I reached out to him and told him like what happened, he told me that he handled it. He told me that he confronted these ladies, and he told me he did it in a very aggressive manner, and like he was like letting them know it better not happen again, or these women would be at risk of losing their jobs. It's what he communicated to me. So fast forward after that situation, I moved forward. I let it go. I felt very uncomfortable with those ladies and with my boss because she was seeming to be agreeing with them and taking their side, even though she wasn't there. But again, I just kept it moving and, decided to remain professional. Even when I seen them, I still had to work with them on projects and things of that nature. So it was awkward because I knew what they did behind my back, but I just had to keep it moving. So this was also reported to HR. So I sent an email to HR of what transpired. There wasn't a meeting where I met with those ladies. I just met with HR, told HR what transpired, and then sent an email to HR of what transpired as well. So from that point until I resigned, my direct report started just really trying to paint a narrative of me that I am not doing my work, not doing it with quality, and she was giving me a lot of unrealistic expectations and trying to set me up for failure. So she would, for example, give me a writing assignment, and she in the past would give me adequate time to finish it, but with now she started giving me 1 day turnaround for something that was typically given a week for. And so obviously when you do that, it's going to be errors, it's going to be typos, it's going to be, but we did have a proofing process. Regardless of the proofing process though, we were still responsible for trying to minimize our errors as much as possible. So she started doing things like that. And so it started being this thing where I gotcha. She wanted to catch me doing something so that she can go back and report it to that guy that's over the department that, again, I said was biracial. And so, yeah, she just was doing, there's so many instances of her doing that. I'm talking months of her doing this. And so it became a thing of I felt like I had to watch my back. I felt like I had to cover myself and document everything. And then she also got the wind that I was documenting things because there were about 1 or 2 more times that I went to HR about her behaviors. And one time I went to HR, I was just furious at the fact that they weren't doing anything about the stuff that she was doing. And they let me know well, we can't disclose any type of actions that we are taking to rectify the situation. But they assured me that there were some things that they were doing to rectify the situation. I ended up finding out, and right now I do not remember how I found out, but I found out that they were putting her through some type of leadership course to teach her how to be a leader. That was one of their solutions to what she was doing. Because it was stated that it's her manager style that is not coinciding with me. It's not working well with me. So I don't know who needs to hear this, but putting someone who is racist through a leadership training and development does not do anything. It doesn't work. So it got so bad to the point where HR had to do a weekly check-in with her and I. So they set up weekly check-ins where I had to show that I was getting my work done, because she was painting a narrative that I was not doing my work. Complete lie. She was painting a narrative that I was not doing my work, or she also was painting a narrative that the work that I was doing was done inaccurate. And so the weekly check-ins were to address any concerns that I had and any concerns that she had. And so even in these meetings, she still was doing the same thing, which was like in these meetings trying to make me appear to be insubordinate, trying to make it seem like I was not doing my job. And it was just like, it was like a tit for tat thing, but not on my end, but I was pretty much like covering myself, whereas she was like determined to make me appear to be unfit for this job and difficult to work with. And so one of the last instances that happened before I decided to resign was she, on another work trip, came back and made up lies about me and was saying that I didn't take accountability. And she said that this is something that is she notices a pattern with me, that I don't take accountability. And the thing she was referring to, one of the things she referred to is I forgot to print out the agenda for it was another conference. I think that, yeah, it was a conference or a trade show. I can't remember, but there was an agenda that we needed to print out for the event that needed to be present at the event. And so I mismanaged my time, and I didn't get the agenda printed off. And so, and I took accountability for that, and I apologized to her when we got to our destination. I let her know, hey, sorry, I did not get the agendas printed off. However, I came up with a solution. I didn't just, have an excuse. I came up with a solution, which was to get them printed in the hotel lobby because they had a printer. So I got it rectified. So got the agendas printed off before we got to the event. And so what is there to complain about? I solved it. So that is what I was saying in the HR check-in meeting. She brought that up as, a way of saying she made this mistake. She did this. And then I was like, well, I resolved it I said sorry. And then I also got the agendas printed. So why is this even brought up? It's it was just no grace with this woman. It's with her, any little mistake that I made was going to be highlighted. It was going to be reported. It was going to be highlighted. I think I said that already. Sorry. But yeah, it was constant criticism of my work since day one. At the very beginning, it was no praise, just you did this wrong. And then I started getting annoyed with hearing going forward, because she used to always use that verbiage. Going forward, don't do this. Going forward, please refrain from making this mistake. And it was just very condescending. And so, when she did that, I really stood up for myself, in that meeting. And I was just it just seems like you're trying to nail me. As I said, it seems like you always are looking for an I got you moment. And I said, I'm just I'm so frustrated with that, and I'm so tired of that, because it's it's created a hostile work environment. I broke down and cried, you guys. Like, I'm talking about, like, I was bawling, crying in this meeting with HR. And I was just like, I'm just tired of this. Like, I was like, I'm stressed out. I come into work every day, like, giving my all, giving my best, only to be treated like this, only to be criticized, only to be lied on, only to be misrepresented, my character to be misrepresented. And I just was like, this is taking a toll on me, like mentally, emotionally, physically. I literally said this in a meeting, and I was like breaking down crying. So in this particular meeting, the guy who is over our whole department, who is a man of color, he's hearing me cry, hearing me break down, hearing everything that, I said. And when it was his time to chime in, he turned on me completely and was like, kind of like he was taking her side and saying, like, I was not taking accountability, things of that nature. And in that moment, it just felt like I was being attacked. Like, it felt like these people have teamed up against me. And that man, he wasn't even like in our office. He literally didn't even work in the same city and state as us. He lived in a different city and state, and worked remotely full time. So, and he did not work with me directly. So he worked with her directly because that was her direct report. And so he didn't even know what I did, literally didn't even know my job. He didn't even know how to do my job. So that's how far removed he was from our office, from our team, and everything that we did. He knew high level, what took place. But like, again, he didn't even know. He had no idea. And so when he stepped in and he was like he had no empathy, no compassion whatsoever. He would just like seem to be like really annoyed with me, to be honest. Like, he seemed to be like, I'm over you, like in this whole situation. And at that time, he did have to step in and do a little bit more. And I think this is where his resentment of me comes, because he was required to be in these check-in meetings. And then he also had to do a check-in with me daily. This is their plan and what they came up with as a solution to, the issues that were going on between her and I. He was going to do a check-in with me and, he was checking in with me to make sure, I was doing my job, and that, checking in to make sure like my day went well, et cetera, et cetera. But even with this plan or this filter in place, she still was doing the things that she was doing, because she would go to him and throughout the day and report little things on me and say, oh, she's doing this, she's doing that. And she was like telling my every little move. If I went to the bathroom for too long, she was letting them know. Like, so she was painting a narrative to him behind my back. I didn't even know that she was doing this until like way later. But she was planting seeds in his head and planning and telling him things about me. And I didn't have a chance to defend myself because I didn't even know that's what she was doing. But all of this came out when we had that meeting where the meeting where I like broke down and cried. And so I feel like I'm missing so much, but I'm just going to skip to when I went to the doctor. So went to the doctor because I wanted to go on a leave after just going through like 6 months of all of this harassment, unfair treatment, berating, just hostile work environment. I just was like, I'm just going to take a leave because this is starting to impact me physically. I felt physically sick. And so I was losing weight, insomnia, gosh, anxiety through the roof. It was just insane. So, yeah, I went to the doctor, and of course they had to do like their vitals, right? So, when they did my vitals and checked my blood pressure was really high. And that was crazy because like I've never had higher blood pressure a day in my life. That was crazy. And I knew instantly it was due to what I was going through on this job. And I remember that day, it was like, I just had like an epiphany, and I was like, God wouldn't be having me at a job that is physically killing me. Because I know that sounds like so dramatic, but essentially that's what was happening. Like, if you have high blood pressure and you're physically sick, you're dying. You know what I mean? So that's pushing you closer to the grave. It's not like adding years to your life. So yeah, I was like, I'm not supposed to be at this job. I'm holding on to this job. And I was trying to find another job, but I was just not having any luck with getting another job. It was very difficult. So I just took the leap of faith to go, to resign. And I'll get into that now. So this situation got so crazy that what's her title? She was like the HR person over the whole company. Mind you, this is a global advertising agency. Okay. So this woman was like, she was an executive. And so she contacts me, reaches out to me via email, and said that she wants to meet with me. She wants to set up a meeting with me on Teams, on Microsoft Teams. I'm like, what the heck? So why? This is before I resigned. So I had already decided to resign. I made up my mind that I was going to resign. And coincidentally, the same day that we had a meeting set up was the day that I was planning to give my resignation. And so, gosh, it's been very hard, by the way, not saying names, because the names have been at the tip of my tongue to say. But anyway, this woman gets on and she goes, hey, yeah, I just wanted to reach out to you. I got wind of you running a business and wanted to know, make sure that was not interfering with your work. First of all, who are you? I've never even heard of you before today. Like, I don't even know you. Like, and then how did you even get that information? How did that come across your desk? And these were the questions that I asked her. And I recorded this conversation too. So everything that I'm saying, like, I can prove. She goes, oh, I was just on social media and I stumbled across your social media and I saw that you do PR work. So, because I did do freelance PR and I took on small projects while I was still working with this company. But before I got hired, I let them know that that's something that I do. I disclosed that at the very beginning. And it was fine. It was never a problem until now, after all these, these reports of me going to HR and these things that have been transpiring with this woman. So I told her, I'm like, I find it funny that after all that I've been through, after all these times of me going to HR reporting that I'm being treated unfairly, there's discrimination, et cetera, that this is the time that you decide to contact me for this. I said, what about what about all these times that I've been treated this way? Why haven't you checked in on me to see how I was doing, to see if I'm okay? Oh, well, there's things now it came back to me. This is when I found out that they decided to give her training and development to be a better leader, as a result of what she had been doing to me. That was their solution. So versus a consequence, versus her being put on any type of like corrective action, they gave her training. Just want to paint that picture for you. So yeah, she's like, oh, she's like stumbling over her words because she's not expecting me, little old me, because I'm just, I'm a little person in the company, right? She's up here in the hierarchy. She's not expecting me to fire at her like that. You know what I mean? So she's like, she's stumbling over her words. And she's like, oh, well, we have done this, and, I am so sorry that you've gone through this, and, we're doing our best to da-da-da. And so she's giving her whole spiel. I don't remember everything she said, but I was like, you know what? I said, it's fine. I said, because I'm resigning today. I'm resigning today because of all that I've gone through with this job. And then I started saying how, I've been impacted, physically, and how I now have high blood pressure because of this situation, and how this has been one of the worst times in my life. And so she, again, was just being apologetic, and she was saying all the politically correct things. Oh, I wish we could get you to stay, and da-da-da-da, blah, blah, blah. So, gave my resignation notice. They didn't even require me to finish my 2 weeks. They paid me for the 2 weeks and let me go the day that I gave my 2 weeks notice, which I was like, praise God, hallelujah. But I decided to pursue a lawsuit after I left there. Long story short, with the lawsuit, it took me so long to find an attorney, because it was all these attorneys that were like either saying that they didn't have the capacity because they had like a lot of cases, because discrimination in the workplace is very common, if you don't know. Or they were saying that my case did not have enough merit. And so finally stumbled across an attorney who was great for this, and he took my case, and yeah, the rest is history. I settled with them out of court, and that's how that cookie crumbled. Only to move on to the next advertising agency, where I was the only person of color, or sorry, one of two, because there was 2 people out of 50 employees that were not Caucasian. So, my eyes are red because I've been crying and I didn't want to cry on camera, so I got it out off camera. This is bringing up a lot of emotions, and so there's so much that transpired that it's probably impossible for me to say every little detail on these videos. But I also want to mention that I forgot to mention that my supervisor at the large advertising agency, after I resigned, she stalked me on social media. I had to block her from Instagram, and then on LinkedIn, I kept her on LinkedIn and didn't block her, because I wanted to show that she had like an obsession with me. And I say that because one, she was always viewing my profile on LinkedIn, which she was doing that during my time there, and then she was doing that well after I left. I'm talking as of 2025, this year. I blocked her this year, but I left the company in 2023. And so from the time I was with the company up until this year, up until me blocking her, she was frequently viewing my profile. And as you know, you can see when people view your profile on LinkedIn. So yeah. And I say she had an obsession because she just would make comments about my hair. My hair is like blown out right now, but it's, it's really curly, and sometimes it can look like a fro. So, yeah. And then I would see her sometimes, like, one time we were on a, Teams call with a client, and she, how like on Teams, you can message someone privately where only they can see it. And she messaged me on Teams one day when we were in a client meeting, and she was like, "Oh, wow, your hair is so nice. I love your hair." And she was like staring at me, and it was like a weird, it's just like she was like, couldn't focus because she was so focused on me. And I often notice her doing that. But that was like a time where I could actually like prove it. So anywho, so the next advertising agency that I was hired at, again, was another advertising agency that lacked diversity. It was an advertising agency where I was one of two people of color. So there was two people out of the whole company who were Black. Everybody else was Caucasian, white. And so I worked there for about 2 months. I want to say, was it 2 months? April, May. So 2.5 or 3 months maybe. But one day I was called into the office to have a meeting with one of the people in leadership. I don't remember his name. And then HR. And so this was a regular day. Like, I would come into the office anyway, but they scheduled this meeting before my shift started. And so I knew something wasn't right. Like, I'm like, what the heck is going on? I'm like, oh my God, I'm about to get fired. And I was right. I was getting fired. So I was called into the office, and the guy was sitting there, and the woman from HR, and he was letting me know that they're letting me go, and he was saying that it's just not a good fit. And he didn't really specify or give like good reason why. I was confused. I never got any type of like, I just never got any type of, performance, what is it called? Like a performance review, or I can't think of the word right now. I'm sorry. Blanking, but you know what I'm saying? Like, where you are put on some type of corrective action for your performance. I was not like that. That did not happen. So to my knowledge, at that point, I was performing to standard and I was doing well. And so I was just really confused why I was being let go. But they just, simply said that it's not working out, and they're letting me go. And so I handled it like a champ, and I was just like, okay, fine. I was like, well, thanks for letting me know. I gathered my things and I left. And then I found out third party that the company they were doing budget cuts, and they decided to let go of a few people. So it was other people, another girl, and several others, and they were all Caucasian, so I'm not really attributing that to my race. I just feel like that was it might have been, and they probably covered it up by, you know, letting go others, but nevertheless, like, I wasn't really like tripping off of it. I didn't make it a deal, and you know, I just accepted it, you know. So all of 2023, I had a very, very difficult time securing employment. Extremely difficult, abnormally difficult. I have the experience, so a little context on me. I have a master's degree, an MBA, and I've been working since I was 14 years old. I'm in my 30s. So been working since I can remember, and I have, you know, a lot of skills, a lot of experience. I have a strong work ethic. I work very hard. I am very dedicated to my work. You know, I'm teachable. Like, there's so many qualities that I can name, but, you know, all that to say is, like, I have the credentials. So to get a job shouldn't have been hard, but it was very hard. And so from that moment, from June of 2023, when I was let go of the second company, up until September of 2024, I could not get a job. Literally could not get a job. I applied. LinkedIn was my home. Okay. LinkedIn was my world. I applied to so many jobs, and it was just rejection after rejection after rejection after rejection. Yeah, so the lighting has changed because I have been telling this story for hours now. With breaks, of course. But yeah, it's getting darker now, but I am determined to finish telling my story. So after this drought of looking for a job, like rejection after rejection after rejection after rejection, I finally get a job not get a job, but I finally start being considered for a job that I really thought I was going to get because they showed a lot of interest. I ended up having 5 interviews, which were over the span of like 3 months. So like after every interview, it was like a 3-week wait. And that ended up being like a whole like 3-month process. It didn't feel like it when I was in it, but it did. And then I also had someone on the inside that was telling me that that's just kind of how it goes there. And plus this job was like a 6-figure role, and you know, it was a big job, but I was very qualified for it. Obviously, the different people who interviewed me at the beginning stages really liked me and saw a lot of potential in me. It wasn't until like I know for sure the last person I didn't feel that like connection with, and I didn't feel like they gave me their stamp of approval. But everybody prior to that was like, yeah, we really like you, and like we think you'd be a great asset to the company, blah blah blah. So anyway, went through that whole process only for them to tell me that they went in a different direction. And I also had to complete an assignment, a project for that whole process too. So devastated. I think devastated is probably not even a word that will suffice of how I felt. And this was in June of last year. So that's an entire year after being unemployed, trying to secure employment, and just hitting a brick wall, you know. So I continued after that to look for a job, and it just was After that, I ended up getting interviewed for another company, and I thought I was going to get this job because I had 2 interviews. It went really well. They really liked me, but then they said they ended up going with another candidate that had more experience. And then it was just a drought from that point on. It just was like nothing was working. I finally got a contract job in September of last year, which only lasted for 1 whole month. And from there up until from October of last year till January, I was still looking for a job. Secured a job in January 27th was my start date at this new, you guessed it, advertising agency in Kansas City, where guess what? I'm literally the only person of color, but I'm desperate for a job. I'm so desperate for a job. I need a job. So I took it. This was a company that I had worked at before, but I worked there very short term before I got the job at the big advertising agency, the one that was the Yale or Harvard of advertising agencies. I worked at this smaller advertising agency for just roughly a month and a half. So, but I left in good standing, and so they took me back at the top of 2025 this year. And so, yeah, from there, of course, I didn't like the idea of being in yet another environment where I am the only person of color, because I have trauma, from this at this point. But I have to eat. I have to survive. I have to live, so I took it. And while I was there, I was doing my best to be optimistic. I was optimistic. I wasn't like walking around with a chip on my shoulder. Even though I had trauma, I would silence that trauma. And I have people who can corroborate this story, because I was sharing this with certain individuals, and I was telling them, like, they were telling me that there were red flags when I was saying like certain things that would transpire at this place. They were like, my mom specifically was like, it's red flags all through there, and it's red flags with your supervisor. She's like, you just don't see it yet. And it was because I was being so optimistic. I was trying so hard, like, not to think what I felt in my spirit. So when I first started this company, I was brought in as an account manager. And I was told that I would be given the responsibilities of a project manager and an account manager, and that this was something new that they were introducing to the account manager role. I didn't know at that time, when it was explained to me at the beginning, that meant that I was going to have a heavier workload than the other account managers in the department, which was called client service. And again, this is a smaller advertising agency. They had no more than, I would say, like maybe 40 employees. And out of the 40 employees, I was literally the only person of color. I'm reminding y'all of that. So yeah, as time went on, I learned that I'm doing a dual job. So I'm doing the job of a project manager and the job of an account manager. And it is so overwhelming. And my supervisor told me at the beginning, she said, if it ever, this was my sign, red flag, but it went over my head, that this job was going to be too much. But she said, if it ever becomes overwhelming, just let me know and I'll make some adjustments and, accommodate you. So I was like, I kept that in the back of my head. I was like, if it ever becomes overwhelming, I'm gonna let her know. So around about a month and a half later, I let her know, because it was overwhelming. It was too much. I could not keep up. I was drowning. I was asking people for help. Also, in this role, in this company, they do not provide a formal training. You kind of conduct your own training. Like, you figure it out. You ask people, you do your own research and hope that it works out. And that doesn't work, because when you make a mistake, people are calling you out on it. And so she also told me, like, you can always come to me if you have any questions. No question is ever a dumb question, but you can always ask me a question. But when I started asking her questions, guess what? She was huffing and puffing, like literally, like I was getting on her nerves, like I was a nuisance to her. Or she would simply just like put me off on somebody else. Ask such and such to do it. Yeah, ask such and such to do it. And yeah, and sometimes I was responded to even in a condescending manner. Like, the tone would be that of like, you don't know how to do that. Like, and a lot of times too, I was like double checking before I did it, so that, you know, it's not wrong. I want to make sure like, hey, this is how it's done, right? Like, it's better to do that than to do it wrong and then someone have to correct you later. Don't you think? So yeah, there's a disparity in the workload with myself and the other team members. Coincidentally, I'm a Black person. I'm the only Black person on the team who has this much of a workload. Sounds like discrimination to me. So it got to the point where I did ask for the accommodation for some things to be taken off of my plate, because the workload was just way too much. I literally was responsible for 37 tasks. I literally like took the time to like write them out and count them and list them. And so I went to my direct supervisor and I requested for some things to be taken off my plate, because she said if it ever became, you know, too overwhelming, to let her know and she'll make some adjustments. However, when I did that, she was like, well, why do you want some things taken off your plate? Like, well, what do you want off your plate? Like I was asking something unreasonable. That was her tone. And then she started counting on her fingers. Well, oh, you only have like, and she started counting like, you only have this many clients. And I'm like, so she was minimizing. That's what she was doing in that moment, was minimizing. She was minimizing the workload. And so at that point in my head, I was like, I don't trust this lady, so I'm going to have to just put this in writing. So I decided to send her an email making the same request that I made verbally, and I listed out all of the workflows and tasks that I was responsible for, which again was 37 tasks. So when I did that, all of a sudden in email, she's on board. She's like, oh yes, of course, I'll make some changes and I'll take this and this and that off your plate. So word to the wise, that's how you got to do it. You have to put things in writing when it comes to these people in corporate, because they'll play in your face. So after that, there was a retaliation. She started being even more like just rude to me. For instance, one time I had got a request from the client to set up a training with our web development team, and they wanted to know how to do something on one of the web pages, right? I never got this request before. I didn't know what their process was for like setting up a training, like what that looked like, right? So I asked her via email, hey, how the client asked me to set up a training, how do I go about doing that? Her response was, it was a question. She responded to my question with the question, and she was like, you're asking me how to set up a video call? That's what she said. And I was like, and she put a question mark at the end. And so I was like, is that the process? Like, I don't know. I'm asking you how to set up a training. So is that what was, I said, I don't know. Is that, I've never set that up before, so I don't know. So then she proceeded to ask me to come into her office, and then she tried to gaslight me and say, is there anything wrong? Like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm fine. I'm just responding to your condescending remark. So I recorded this conversation because I knew it was not going to be good. Oh, I got time today. That's why I am still going. I don't care. I started this afternoon and it's nighttime, and I am going to tell my story. So, after the conversation I had with my direct report, she was telling me in that meeting that she was just checking on me, trying to, make it seem like I had an attitude with her in the email, and when I was just trying to get clarification for, how we go about, setting up trainings for the client. And yeah, so it was gaslighting. In that conversation, she asked about, my home situation, because I had a home situation, and was displaced from my home. And that is not something I'm ready to share, but, God willing, I will share that information. But it was a very unfortunate situation, and I was displaced from my home, and I had to stay in a hotel for a few weeks, because I was literally homeless. And so I was vulnerable and shared this with her because I wanted her to understand, like, I'm coming to work with a lot on my shoulders. And also, there was a day that I needed off to kind of like handle business and do things. So there were multiple days that I needed to take off to handle business. So I felt the need to, and I didn't have to do this, but I wanted her to understand, like, I'm not just taking off work because I am being like lazy or anything like that. There's something that happened and I really need this time. So I was hoping that she would be a human being and, like, just understand, like, I have a lot going on at this time, and this is just me taking off is due to this, not to anything else. So when I did explain it to her, she was like, whoa, that's a lot. Like, I commend you for still coming in here. And she was like telling me how strong I am. Like, you are so strong. Like, wow, I can't believe you're dealing with all that. Like, the fact that you're still killing it, like, in your job, like, you're a rock star, but but you're going through all that, like, that's impressive. And she was like, you're doing a wonderful job, Jasmine. Like, you are doing an amazing job. Just, she's like, stay strong and keep going. And I recorded this conversation, so I can definitely prove what I'm saying. You're doing a great job. You're so hard on yourself, which is really a true thing about me. Like, I'm very, very hard on myself. Like, I just want to be perfect. You know what I mean? I want to work hard. I want to perfect things. And so, people can see that, especially like people that I work with, and if, whoever is above me that I'm reporting to, they can see that. So she made that comment, and she was like, you're too hard on yourself. Like, stop being so hard on yourself. You're doing a great job. So you don't need to do extra. Cause I was doing extra. I was staying late, often, a few times a week. I was staying late. I was working through my lunch breaks. I was doing the most. And so she was like, you don't need to do all that. Like, you're doing an amazing job. Just give yourself a break. So, I was like, okay. And this is not anything that she hasn't said before. She had been saying this for like weeks. Like, every week we would talk. She would say comments like that. And so fast forward to it's about a week later. FYI, we're getting to like the very end of this thing. So I go to HR. I ask them for an accommodation. And the accommodation was to work from home for 3 weeks while I look for a place to stay, because again, I did not have a place to stay. Why I needed to work from home? Because my mother lived out of state. She lives out of state, and that was the most reasonable and safest place for me to live without having any financial burden, which I needed. So I needed time to get the money, to get a few paychecks so that I can go and so I can get a place, right? There's deposit, you got to pay first month's rent or like a prorated amount, moving expenses, movers, like, it's a lot. It's costly to move. So I just needed an accommodation, and it wasn't an unreasonable request because we had another team member on our team that worked in client service who worked 100% remotely, because this person used to be local, but she relocated to another city and state. And what I was told by my supervisor is that she didn't want to lose her, and this is why she allowed her to work remotely. And so another reason I know that this was an unreasonable request, because there were other people not on our team but within the company that worked remotely 100%. Also, the entire company was on a hybrid structure before I came to the company, and it was put on pause and was supposed to be resumed once, well, they were already past due of when they made their promise to resume, which was something that a lot of the employees were pretty disgruntled about. Like, a lot of the employees were really, really upset, and actually it was a big deal in one of our all staff meetings. A white guy confronted the CEO about how they did not fulfill their promise to go back to being hybrid at the top of the year. And he was very upset. He was raising his voice. He was saying that people weren't taking accountability. And he's literally saying this to the CEO in front of everybody. And he was like, I'm just really disappointed. I'm just really upset. And I just think it's, a bunch of BS that you guys are like not taking accountability, because the CEO was saying it was at the discretion of the department heads to bring back the hybrid structure, but then the department heads were blaming it on the CEO. So he literally was calling everybody out in this meeting. And so when I say white man privilege, okay, because he didn't get in trouble, he didn't get fired. As a matter of fact, he was praised and uplifted even more. Like, let it be me that did something like that. I would have been out of there. As a matter of fact, I did do something like that, and I was out of there. And I'm going to tell you what that is shortly. All that to say, this job could be done remotely. Another thing to support that claim is that everybody worked remotely when we had inclement weather days, because in Kansas City, it'd be cold in the wintertime and it'd be blizzards in the wintertime. So we worked remotely for days, like 3 or 4 days, 1 week in a row. We worked remotely. So I'm saying that for a reason, because somebody tried to say that my job couldn't be done remotely, and that's a complete lie, and she knew it was. So when I go to HR to make this request. I tell them my situation and thoroughly about what happened with me and why I was displaced from my home. And the HR person that I was speaking to, she was like, she was showing empathy, and she told me that she thought it was a great idea, for me to work from home for 3 weeks, and she thinks that that's a reasonable, accommodation. However, she does not make that call, and that is a call that my supervisor has to make. So she said she would talk to my supervisor, and she would, they would, talk about it, and then they would schedule a meeting with me to let me know what they determined. So that took place. About a week later. I was contacted by my direct supervisor, and she said, hey, me and HR are ready to meet with you to talk about your situation. And we met on Microsoft Teams video conference. And so she wasn't in the office that day. I was in the office physically. And so she gets on the line. She gets on the video, and she goes, yeah, so I keep wanting to say names. I talked to such and such in HR, and she told me about your request. And yeah, I'm here to let you know that we cannot accommodate you. We cannot accommodate your request. And then she just sat there and waited for me to respond. And then I was like, okay. I said, what is the reason? What would be the reason you can't accommodate it? Oh, well, one, you, of course, I'm paraphrasing. I recorded the conversation though. This is not a job that can be worked remotely. Your job is a job that is required to be in the office. There's some things that you have to do that requires you to be in the office. So then I called her out on that, and I'm like, well, we have a team member who does a good portion of what I do. There are a few things that she does not do that I do, but she does a lot of what I do, and she works 100% remotely. Plus, I've worked remotely. I worked remotely when it was inclement weather days. Plus, I have the job of an account manager and a project manager. Both of those roles can be work from home. Both the, project managers work from home, and we have an account manager on our team. Well, she's a project manager, but she works from home. And so the task that she didn't do, one of them off the top of my head was meeting with the clients. I had to meet with the clients on a weekly basis and lead our client meetings, which was done virtually because none of our clients were local. So they were all out of state. So we had to set up a Teams meeting every week with all of our clients to conduct our weekly status meetings. And so I called her out on that. And then she just kind of was she was upset that I was calling her out, and not just accepting it. So then she was kind of forced to come up with another excuse. And she goes, the other reason you can't work from home is that you aren't performing to standard. Your performance is an issue. And I'm like, since when? I said that's news to me because I haven't been told. No one's told me that I haven't been performing well. Today is the first day that I'm hearing that I'm not performing well, and I didn't think about this until after, because when you're in conversations, sometimes when it's heated like that, you don't think of everything. But later, I thought about how that was a contradiction because she told me a few days prior, I don't even think it was a whole week, in another recorded conversation, that I was doing well, that I had been killing it. So contradicting. So you're telling me that now all of a sudden, a few days later, that I'm not performing to standard. So lies, just lies. So it all boils down to, why don't you want to accommodate me, but you accommodate other people? And then she also tried to insinuate that there was a more valid reason as to why she accommodated the other girl from working remotely, but not myself. Which is, I'm reminding you of what she told me before, which is that the other girl wanted to move out of state, and she said that the girl was too valuable to her to let go. So she offered for her to work remotely. The girl did not request to work remotely. She gave her that option. So another fabrication. So in my situation, and my reason for asking to be accommodated was pretty severe. Like, I don't know who wouldn't think that this is not valid enough or severe enough. And HR even said it when I first met with them. But then, of course, when they saw her stance, they kind of had to side with her. So she gave me 2 reasons that were just flat out not true. That I wasn't performing to standard, and that my job could not be worked remotely. Again, this is a matter of discrimination, because you're accommodating and giving others privileges that you're not giving me. And I am the only person of color on this team. And the reasons why you're not giving me these accommodations are not true, are not valid. They do not stand. So what is the real reason I am being treated differently than these other people on our team who are Caucasian, who are white? Why are they getting accommodations and privileges that I cannot have? It's because I'm Black. It's because you didn't want me there in the first place. Because it wasn't her call to even hire me. It was her boss's call to hire me, which was a white male. The COO of the company I had a good rapport with, and when I worked there previously, and he called me directly when he saw that I applied for the job. He called me on the phone and was like, hey, we want to give you the job because we loved you here. You were amazing, et cetera, et cetera. And so when things got shaky with her, he pretty much, I don't know. I don't want to speak for him and what he did behind the scenes. But he was the one who told her to hire me. She could not overstep. You know what I'm saying? So if it was her call, I'm pretty sure she wouldn't have hired me. And why I say that, there was another person on our team who quit. He resigned about 3 weeks after I started with the company. And when he resigned, they needed to fill that vacancy. And so they interviewed several people. Everybody was Caucasian except for one guy. It was a Black guy. He was the first person to be interviewed. And when we would have our team meetings, because we in client service would have meetings every Monday, and every Monday, on the following Monday after this guy was interviewed, she was she was telling the team, I didn't really care for him. I just don't know how well he's going to work with us. And the guy had came around, when they interview people, they take them around to meet people within the company. It's not saying that they have the job, but they kind of trying to see your interaction with the company and with the people. So they brought him around. I thought he had a great personality. He was bubbly. He was, professional. He seemed to be on the surface, he seemed to be a great fit. However, she said that she didn't really care for his resume and he didn't have direct experience. she claims that he didn't have like direct experience like in advertising, but this dude literally like he ran a team. He was like managing a team, and I think they had like in-house marketing, but he didn't work directly for like an advertising agency. So that was like her excuse. But we seen his resume, and his resume was like so impressive. Like this dude was like, yeah, he was that guy. And he had relocated from somewhere in the South and came to Kansas City for something. I don't remember, but he had a good reason for coming to Kansas City, and that's what put him back into the job market. So she wanted to skip over him, and then she decided to hire a white girl. And when she decided to hire the white girl, she made an offer to the white girl, and then the last minute the white girl was like, oh, actually I'm deciding not to move forward with it because I got a client of my own. And she was like, the only way I can come work for you is she said the only way she would come work for her is if she would allow her to work part-time. So that fell through. So she literally skipped over she really didn't even have to go beyond the black guy, because the black guy was like well qualified, like overqualified for the job. But because she's racist and she doesn't like black people, she skipped over him and tried to hire this white girl, and then it blew up in her face. I digress. So yeah, those are the reasons why I know, she, wouldn't have hired me. And so, yeah, after the conversation with HR and her failing to acknowledge that the reasons she gave me for not accommodating my requests were not valid, and she just kept a straight face and was like, well, even when I called her out on those things, she just didn't care. Like I don't care if you see that it's a bunch of BS. I'm still gonna stand on it. And so, yeah, she stood on it, and I sat with it for like over the weekend, because that was on a Friday when we had that meeting. Sat with it over the weekend, and I said to myself, do I want to go through what is about to happen? Which is, she's about to turn it up. She's about to turn up the unfair treatment, the harassment, the discrimination. I know what transpires, what comes after that, because I've been through this before. When you have those types of meetings and then you call them out on what they're doing, and they have that type of like abusive mentality, they don't like when you call them out and you hold them accountable, which is what I was doing in that meeting. And I could see it on her face that she was upset and she was angry. It was like, and I could hear it in her tone even, which can be heard when in the recording. She was upset that I was calling her out. Her tone changed, and she was pretty much like, how dare you like try to call me out? Like, who do you think you are? And so I knew what was about to come, also because she ended the call on a note of, oh, and we'll see you on Monday, because I had requested Monday off, but she proudly was letting me know in that meeting that, oh, we're not going to approve your time off on Monday either. Just FYI, because I requested a mental health day. So it was like a ha ha ha, gotcha. Oh, you thought you're doing something, but I call the shots. So I sat with it over the weekend, and I was like, this is about to be ugly. So I was like, I don't want to go through that. So over the weekend, I sat with it. I made peace with it that I was going to resign. And that's what I did. Monday morning, bright and early, I scheduled an email to go out at like 8 a.m. right at the beginning of the work day. And I took my time with this resignation letter, and I wrote out details, well, not details, but I was thorough in why I was leaving the company. And I stated in this email that I was treated unfairly, that I was not set up for success, that I was discriminated against. And what happened after that? I was retaliated against. I was not allowed to work the remaining time that I wanted to finish out my time there, because I was the access to all of the essential tools to do my job was revoked immediately after I sent this email. And I sent this email to leadership. So it was the CEO, the COO, the CMO, HR, and also my direct supervisor was on this email. So they removed my access to the tools, and I was like, so does this mean that I can't come back, that they fired me? I didn't know what it meant. So I was waiting for somebody to reach out to me and tell me what's what. Nobody said anything. And I had to be the one to reach out to them around, it was at the end of the business day. It was like around 3 or 4. I sent an email to HR and I said, hey, notice that I don't have access to any of the tools that I need to do my job. What does this mean? Then they finally reply and tell me what's going on. Wonder when that was going to happen, or if I just had to go into work and find out and be embarrassed in front of everybody and get the news then. But then I was told, yeah, well, your resignation is effective immediately, and we need to arrange a time for you to return the company equipment. So sounds like you guys are terminating me, because I couldn't even finish out my week that the notice that I gave. So that was a retaliation. No one apologized to me. No one said, hey, we're so sorry about what you went through here. What can we do to make it right? Nothing. Not even a simple apology. Literally, I was told, thank you for sharing your experience. That was the response that I got from that. I'm telling you that I went through discrimination, unfair treatment, abuse, a hostile work environment, that I was stressed out, that it impacted me mentally, physically, emotionally, socially. And your response to that was, thank you for sharing your experience. As a company, yeah. So, needless to say, I am seeking an attorney for this company. I'm seeking an attorney to represent me in discrimination with this situation. Because I just don't think it's fair what I went through and what happened to me. I started documenting because I was on the HR side of TikTok, and a lot of the HR girlies were saying like, document. So I started documenting everything. So if you guys could please give me recommendations for attorneys in Kansas City. I have a tight deadline. I have a right to sue letter from EEOC that was on April 28th, and I need an attorney ASAP to represent me in this case. And I have, like I said, tons of evidence and details of these occurrences and a document that I took the time to put together. So this concludes this series. If you have any questions, I might make another video, I don't know, but as for now, I'm just going to stop it right here. But if you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the comments, and please send me your attorney referrals. Thank you for listening.